The Insta360 X4 has a great spec sheet. We've all seen the videos of it in action, and let's just say it's a desirable piece of kit. But is it really that good? Is it the perfect system that's hyped about? Well, I want to bring my experiences of it to the table, so let's have a look. Now, when the Insta360 X4 was announced, I hit the order button. I got it on day one. I was so impressed with the picture quality. And as someone working in TV in the UK, I have some use cases, and for around $500 or so, it seemed like a no-brainer. And I didn't go into this with my eyes closed. I'd seen the X3 in action as my colleague Max bought one, and we used it during the setup of a podcast episode. Although it did overheat next to an open fireplace. A rookie error. Now, I work in sports TV and I shoot for the BBC and use mainly Sony's, the FX6, A7S3, A7 IV, you get the picture. In the industry, we always talk about editorial, so in the case of a camera like the X4, will it be relevant to any story we're trying to tell? But in sport, you need a camera to get POV footage too, so athletes on bikes and wheelchairs, etc. So the 360 cam, like the X4, is perfect. But also, being a one-man band on shoots, I want to get BTS footage of me working, well, for videos exactly like this. And just like the aforementioned podcast, that's about it for me. Two simple use cases, both very different, but very simple. So the Insta360 X4 has the headline-grabbing title of being an 8K camera, and who doesn't love an 8K camera? It can shoot 4K up to 120 frames a second, shoots 72 megapixel photos, in single lens mode 4K 60 frames per second, and in 5.7K mode, Insta360 say the battery can run for up to 135 minutes. And yeah, that's more than enough battery to get the job done. It's waterproof to around about 10 meters or so. It has digital stabilization, and they call this flow state stabilization. And I guess that's the package. And on the surface, it looks great. And in the main, it is great. Kinda. Okay, when buying any technology, we have to understand what we're getting into. For example, is this ever going to replace my A7 cameras? Well, no. Would I ever use this instead of my Pocket 3? No. So what is the catch then? Well, as a 360 camera, it has major plus points, but it also has some negatives. And I can only speak from my experience, and you yourself may have different experiences too. So let's use the headline-grabbing 8K resolution, for example. Yes, it is 8K, but it's 8K across the 360-degree image. Now, some of you watching this won't actually know that that's the case. So to just warn you, the final shots you export from this camera won't be 8K. So depending on how far you crop in, you might get a 4K image or even a 1080p image. And if you keep cropping even further, well, you lose more resolution. Now, that's something to think about straight off the bat. The results from this camera outdoors can be absolutely brilliant. I guess it's the same for all action cameras. The more light you get on that sensor, the better. I've had a GoPro before, and I did get good results, but I found I didn't use it enough. So on the couple of occasions I've used the Insta360 X4 for action, well, it's delivered. And the first shoot I did with the Insta360 X4 was with 9-time Paralympic champion Hannah Cockcroft. Like that.
Yeah.
Should be okay. Yeah. Look at
Oh,
you.
so it's filming everything
It's
all
filming
around?
all around.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
They
I
are
like
really
that.
good.
The X4 was easy to clamp to a wheelchair. Now, I wanted to have this in 8K, but 8K only goes up to 30 frames a second. But because this was for the BBC and it would be broadcast on BBC News, it had to be 50 frames a second. BBC News still broadcasts with an interlace signal, not progressive. So in order to fix this, 50 frames a second was the choice, and then I converted it in post. But for this video here, you're seeing these pictures in 25 frames a second. And by the way, just look at that sky. Give the sensor good light and you get results like these. But this POV shot really gives you an insight into the power and the speed that Hannah really needs to get to during races. And yes, she won 2 golds at this summer's games in Paris. And this example shows you what the Insta360 X4 can do. And after that one, I had another shoot with a Paralympic legend, this time Sarah Story. Her career has spanned 9 Paralympic Games from 1992 to this summer's Games in 2024, both across swimming and cycling, winning 19 Paralympic titles. Anyway, Sarah won 2 golds in Paris this summer, and this shoot was done just a few weeks before, and again, it was easy to clamp the Insta360 to her bike. And we didn't have a lot of time to get these because, let's face it, if you've got more golds to win, who wants to spend their time filming all day? But again, it gives you a glimpse of what it takes to be a record breaker, and with the shots from her in the car with the Sony a7 IV, we could really tell the story the BBC wanted. Now let me know in the comments below what you actually think of the Insta360 X4, and what would you improve in the next version, which I guess would be the X5? Okay, so I've been waxing lyrical about how good this camera is on these shoots, but I just want to touch upon Lowlight. These sensors on this camera are not the same as those of full-frame mirrorless offerings, so unfortunately, if there's a lack of light, it's going to show. And this will be exasperated when you do the cropping in post. It's something that's annoying, and I say this because of the great low light quality I'm used to with other cameras. The technology is moving on very quickly, and rightly or wrongly, I'm looking for clear images. However, it's probably a lot to ask for a camera that does all of this work. Shooting a 360-degree image and to be perfect in every area, including low light, is probably a bit much to ask, but I feel I'm still left wanting more. So just a couple of other issues I've had with the X4, and one of them includes lens glare. Because if you have your camera in the wrong place, as I did here, it'll be a problem, and that's the issue with the fisheye lenses. They really do catch the sun. Another problem is the occasional misplacement of the AI stitching of the image. As you can see in this one, the back of Charlie's head isn't quite stitched together properly. And for this kind of work, it isn't a deal breaker, I mean, let's face it, but it's worth flagging up. And on a side note, the desktop app and the mobile app work really well. I've had more experience with the desktop program, but that's because that's my preference. A simple timeline at the bottom of the screen, you put your markers in and you adjust to your heart's content. There are lots of options down the right of the screen as well to add flow state stabilization and direction lock, and you can stick your images together in many different ways with dynamic, optical flow, or AI stitching. The main part of the app is to adjust the image so you can drag the screen around to suit your needs. And you can track the subject in post too. This was with Paralympic champion Amy Truesdale, and it works quite well, but it did get distracted a few times in this training situation, bodies all over the place and that kind of thing. But when you're done, simply export and you're good to go. So time for some final thoughts, and this Insta360 X4, well, it's a great gadget to have in your arsenal. It's a 360 camera, and it does a lot of other jobs that my other cameras just can't do. Now, I've had a couple of comments on my DJI Pocket 3 videos, viewers saying they'd rather have the X4 over the Pocket 3. And everyone is entitled to their choice for sure, but they're both very different cameras with very different use cases. So I would say it's like comparing apples and oranges. You've always got to remember that the X4 is going to take longer in post to get the results that you want. The image, either in 360 mode or in single camera mode, will have a, well, fisheye quality to it. So in order to correct this, you'll have to use either the mobile app, desktop program, or something like Adobe's Premiere plugin. There is always an extra layer of work involved, but with the Pocket 3, you shoot the footage and it's ready to be edited or saved in your archive. But as this is my opinion, I'd use the Insta360 as a 360 camera and the Pocket 3 as a point and shoot or vlog type camera. And I get it, $500 is a big chunk out of our monthly budget, which is why we must choose carefully when spending large chunks of money on cameras. Well, there's certainly lots of room for improvement in future iterations, and I'm sure we'll see those over the coming years. So overall, am I pleased with it? Yeah, I am. But do I want more for my $500? Well, I always want more. But increasingly, if we search for perfection in the camera world, we're always going to be constantly disappointed. So with the Insta360 X4, we take it for what it is and we make the most of it. And once again, just look at that sky.